Welcome back to AM Northwest. It was a crime that rocked an affluent Atlanta suburb for years. A black socialite gunned down at her front door. The chief suspect was her white estranged millionaire husband. Here to take us through some of the twists and turns of the case, we welcome the Portland author of A Devil Went Down to Georgia, Deb Miller Landau. Good to have you with us. Tell me about this case and what drew you to it. Why write about it?
So this was a fascinating case that happened in 1987, so a long time ago.
Right.
I was a writer at Atlanta Magazine and was asked to do a retrospective on the case in 2002. So it was, quite a few years after the murder happened. And I started looking into it and, I was like, why didn't this get solved sooner? What happened here? And so I got really into the research and looking into it hard and published a big story at the time in 2004 in Atlanta and kind of kept hold of the files and just felt like there's more to this story. I just could never really get rid of that box of files.
Well, even if you just go to how the two got together, because they met in the late 70s, right?
Yep.
So tell me about that.
So they met at a time when, the federal laws that repealed anti-miscegenation laws that basically forbade interracial marriage had only been repealed in Georgia 4 years before Lita and Jim met.
Wow.
And so it was a really remarkable time in the South to be an interracial couple and to see interracial couples. And Lita's family knew that it would be a hard road for her if she stuck with Jim.
And so she's a socialite. He's a millionaire. The marriage starts off okay, right? It goes for a little while, but then she realizes he's not the guy she thought he was.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to look at this case now, all these years later, when we're sort of talking about things like we have new language around domestic abuse.
Yes.
We have new language around how to talk about race. We're talking about race in a way that we never did before.
Right.
So sort of looking at this story, so Lita was, in many, many ways, a victim of domestic abuse at a time when, anything that happened behind closed doors was a private matter.
Yeah.
And, but he did things by like controlling her with money, isolating her from her family and friends, moving her to spaces that were, predominantly white. And she was fantastic at navigating through those, having grown up kind of in those environments, but a really, really isolating experience for her.
What was her breaking point? Why did she decide? Because at one point she decides to leave, which is almost the time when, it's the most dangerous time for a domestic violence victim.
Yeah, so they'd been married for 8 years when she decided, I've had enough. I think it was, I write in the book, she found women's lingerie in their marital bed, and it was the bra that broke the camel's back. She was just, I'm done, I'm out. And at the time, she hitched a U-Haul trailer they were living in Florida. She hitched a U-Haul trailer to her Mercedes and drove back to Atlanta and filed for divorce.
And then what happens? He's, I'm sure, and didn't he buy like a separate mansion, a secret mansion, without even telling her at one point?
He did. He bought a 17,000 square foot mansion just down the road from Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida, where, the population is, only 0.1% of the population at the time was black, and largely probably a nanny or live-in maid. And so, he didn't tell her. He just said, we're moving to Florida at the time. So she never really wanted to be there. So she's back in Atlanta. She files for divorce. He's livid, takes, sort of applies what he called scorched earth tactics in their divorce, tried to get it back so it would be litigated in Florida, did all sorts of, really nasty things. So it was 2 years into that divorce process, and the day that a judge was to make a pretty major decision on the division of assets in their marriage, Lita gets the doorbell rings. And
so she's shot at her front door. Who does the shooting?
So a man disguised as a flower delivery man brings a long white box with a pink bow, and eyewitnesses hear her say, good morning to him, and he pulls out a gun and shoots her. First one misses. The second one, she sort of holds up the box of flowers to protect herself. Of course, that's not going to work, and the bullet went straight through the box of flowers and hit her in the side of the head, and she died half an hour later at Piedmont Hospital.
And obviously he paid for this murder, but why weren't the cops able to find him, get him, prosecute him, put him in jail?
So everyone believed that the husband had something to do with it, that Jim must have had something to do with it, but the hitman vanished. They never found a weapon. They had largely circumstantial evidence, and they could never find kind of a money trail that tied Jim to this hitman. And so the case went very, very cold for years to come, even though Jim was tried in federal court 5 years after the murder and was acquitted. I think, you know, it's a pretty common theme that if you have wealth and you're a white person,
you can get away with things.
Yeah, you get a better defense.
Cops found him now recently in Thailand?
Well, they found him in 2004, living in Thailand.
Okay.
And he had been on the FBI's most wanted list. After they found the hitman, they went after him, and that's when he vanished. And Interpol was looking for him, the FBI was looking for him. And then they finally found him in Thailand, living with his name on the door, and then he fought extradition back to the States, but was finally convicted in 2006.
So he's in prison at this point?
Yep, he's in prison in Augusta, Georgia.
I understand there's going to be a possible 2020 episode on this?
Yes, 2020 is doing, you know, is doing a 2-hour episode on this case, largely because of the book, which is wonderful, but also it's really important to highlight Black victims.
Absolutely.
I mean, most true crime stories are about, you know,
white
women.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important to look at cases where the victim is Black as well.
Absolutely. We want to tell everyone the book again is titled A Devil Went Down to Georgia. I know you have a book event that's in Sisters, right?
Yeah, I'll be at the Sisters Festival of Books this weekend on Saturday.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be right back with more AM Northwest. Don't go away.